You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today. But before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. So a huge shout out to Governor Anatoby for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. And finally, our third sponsor is 988. The Oklahoma 988 Mental Health Lifeline. 988 is a direct 3-digit lifeline that connects you with trained behavioral health professionals that can get all Oklahomans the help that they need. Learn more by visiting 988oklahoma.com. That's 988oklahoma.com. And now, let's get into today's episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma podcast. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode in Oklahoma City today. With Mat Maxwell, who, just got off stage literally last night of playing one of the last 2 shows in Oklahoma City on the tour that you're on, playing bass for Luke Combs.
Yeah.
Seeing the videos and Instagram stories from last night, it looked nuts.
It was a lot of fun. Packed house both nights.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure tonight's going to be crazy too. But, what's, obviously you got family in town, like it's a home concert for you, but what was it like walking out and you're seeing all your friends and stuff?
It was great. I, leading up to the show, I kind of was, my mind was taking me to different places of like, growing up, I grew up in Tishomingo, Oklahoma. And so I was thinking about my dad and my friends that I grew up with from high school and the ones that were going to be there. So during the day, I went into catering, and each venue, they do a unique thing to make you feel at home and make you feel good and welcome. So they have like maybe a funny Photoshop picture of his face, Luke's face on something funny, or one of the openers' faces on like last night they had Step Brothers. They had Luke and Jordan Davis as the faces. It's just funny, cool stuff like that. Anyway, so I walked into catering, and they had taken one of his song lyrics that talks about Oklahoma and superimposed it. It was really well done over a field with like bison in it. And I was just sitting there in catering, and I was like, man, that's awesome. And then it just triggered all those other memories that I've been. So during the day, I really reflected on just my life and career and how fortunate I've been and stuff. And, being in Oklahoma, last 2 shows of the tour, et cetera. And I was like, so I had my little moment during the day that was really special and cool. And then the show was just like, woohoo. It was like, so anyways, It was just a cool full spectrum day yesterday. And then after the show, I did my best to coordinate with family and friends and say like, okay, I'm outside, I'm in front of the Omni, let's all get a hug and a picture, that kind of thing. And I've always been a little like, okay, how do I navigate this? So I did my best, but got to see all my friends and family that came, and then again, some tonight. So it was incredible, in a word.
Yeah. Well, and I was downtown last night too for my wife's work party, and downtown was chaos last night. It was, the whole place was shut down. I was making the mistake of getting into downtown around 6:45 as gates were opening. Oh, not a good time to enter downtown at all. All the parking garages full. And my wife's like, why is it so busy? I was like, because it's in town. She's like, oh, that's why. And
shutting the city down.
Which is cool though, right? It's cool to kind of, come home and have that effect and do
Definitely.
that. But I did you go to the UCO thing as well yesterday, or was that
Yes, the ACM at UCO, Scott Booker, really neat, great, wonderful, interesting guy. He was nice enough to have Luke Strummer and I, his name is Jake Summers, we do clinics, we do music clinics, and coming from a rural area like Tishomingo, they have band in school and stuff, which I actually did not do. I wish I would have, but as far as learning about the music business, if you're in an area that doesn't have that, obviously, I'm 36, so the internet was a thing, but as far as like YouTube and all the different resources that you have, it wasn't as prevalent. And even then, it's still hard to get like real, you don't even know what to Google sometimes. Anyway, so I say that all to say, we like doing clinics, going in, we play songs, but we do a big Q&A, and we go like, let's talk about the industry. Is this something you want to do? And it's like, there's a lot of people and kids and adults and whatever that want to do a lot of things, but there's a small pocket of people that like music and want to, that sort of stuff. So it's a really fun way for us to speak on what we've done and what has worked for us, what did work for us, and just some stuff about the music business, because it's kind of an interesting field, and if you haven't done it, it's, I know for me, I learn new things every day. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll handle that differently next time. So the clinic is just a way to kind of just get into that and kind of help people, in a way. So anyways, Jake and I do these clinics. This whole last tour, we've done almost every tour date, because we're doing 2 nights in each city. And so one of the 2 days, we just schedule at a time that's conducive. And anyway, so yeah, we did the ACM at UCO, and it was great. Bunch of students, great questions,
Yeah.
What do you do to practice? What's it like doing this? Do you play in the studio? Do you this? Do you that? So I love it. I'm doing another one next week in Tulsa, and I'll probably just keep doing them the rest of my career because they're just so fun.
Well, and like you said, you learn stuff from them too, right? Which is the great part of it. But also, like,
100%.
I love that, because you're doing 2 songs every kind of stop, you have time. Whereas 2 songs, two nights every stop,
yes.
right? Whereas like if you're just doing one, it's in and out. You're on the road, you're on the bus, you're to the next city, like, or whatever. Like that's, it's nice that you have time.
Absolutely. It's like, I gotta find the showers and go get something to eat, and here's the hotel, and so by the time, we haven't ran these songs in a little while, so in sound check and then sound check. Yeah, you're right. It ends up being quite a day if it's just one in and out. So 2 makes it a lot nicer.
Well, and like you just said, it's mass chaos. Right? Like you're
definitely controlled chaos, and we've got we really do have a killer team, but you're right, it's a lot. That's one thing that I'm continually blown away by, is the people behind the scenes and how incredible a job that they do at what they do, because you get there and you're like, when I first started touring, it's like I walked into an arena, I'm like, wow, this is so cool, I'm so excited, blah, blah, blah. Oh, these things are empty. Oh, they build everything. Oh, they get up at 4 or 5 a.m. Oh, it's just a deep appreciation for what everyone does. It's like, catering got up at 6 to start cooking, or 5 or 4 to start cooking for everybody. And I don't know, it's just really cool to see the whole thing come together and how symbiotic of a relationship. It's just so cool, man. Yep. It's an interesting thing to do what we normally do, like at home or in our routine thing, on the road. Like taking it on the road is just a whole
yeah
it's a whole thing.
So back to growing up in Tish. Tell me about that, because I had some college teammates who played golf down there. Cool. Who I think one of them is actually working at the golf course down there. Preston Lovett's his last name.
I'm loosely related to the Lovitts, I think. Yeah, I am.
He's about this big.
Yeah, we're probably 3rd or 4th cousins. Yeah. Seriously.
But he would always tell me, he's like, you gotta come down to Tish, and we always played golf in Durant, so it was close enough.
Yes.
And then one of our other teammates, his family used to kind of hosted us when we were down there, but we had a blast down there all the time. But that's the only reason I know where Tishomingo is, because of my teammates, and obviously Blake Shelton.
Sure.
It's kind of in that area, I guess. But tell me about kind of growing up and how music comes around, and how you end up grabbing a guitar, and because like you just said, it wasn't generally there growing up, right?
Yeah.
Compared to the bigger cities with the bigger schools and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in Amarillo, Texas, and then I moved to go live with my dad. I was living with my mom. I went to go live with my dad in Tishomingo when I was about 11. He used to spend summers there. He was born in Texas, grew up there, and then eventually moved to Tishomingo because he had been there as a kid. We have a bunch of cousins there, a bunch of history there and stuff. So anyways, he moved there, and I was like, went to go live with him when I was 11. And somewhere around that time, you end up getting into school band program or et cetera. So I don't know what all the circumstances were, but I ended up not doing that. And again, in hindsight, I wish I would have. It's a wonderful thing. But so I got there and I just started playing sports and just trying to figure out what life was going to be like there. And I loved it. I have friends to this day from there. My uncle lives there. I still go visit him. I was there a few weeks ago. So anyways, there were some guys that were like a year or two older than me, and they played music. And I was like, man, that's awesome. I like music. Oh, people play music. That's cool. Anyway, so just it went from being an abstract thing to like, oh, you can do it. And so anyways, another friend of mine was getting into guitar and said, you should play bass. And I remember being like, well, what's bass? I don't know what that is. And so he described it to me, played it for me on a car, he said, here's this low frequency, anyways, however he described it. And he had a bass. So anyways, I started playing because of him. He showed me the ropes, and it was just really like, put your finger here, do this, and then put your finger here, do that. And then we're off to the race, just having fun. Anyways, I did that for a few years, and then didn't really know what I was doing, didn't have lessons or directions, but I was just doing it for fun and just trying to play by ear and stuff. Anyway, so then those friends that were older than me that played music moved to Kansas. There was a music program there. There was probably one in between Tishomingo and there, but they just settled in Kansas because they had other friends there anyways. So eventually I moved up there and did that same music program. Had a great mentor, teacher of the music program, kind of got me into audio technology and music. So I took all these theory classes. So it was like a crash course condensed. Hey, here's all the stuff you missed out on in music theory class and band. And anyways, so I really took it serious and I really worked hard and learned a lot of things in those. I was about 3 years in that small town of Parsons, Kansas. And then finished that music program and then thought, well, now what? And I was like, okay. I learned from music business class that at the time, New York, LA, and Nashville were the three big ones if you really wanted to try and make a push for it. And somewhere in my brain, I was scared to do that, but then also somewhere in my brain, I think I knew realistically that I wasn't ready. When are you ever ready? But in my head, I was like, maybe there's an in-between. So I would drive through from Parsons, Kansas to Tishomingo to go see my dad and relatives, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so anyways, long story short, I ended up settling in Tulsa for about 15, 16 years. And I worked at a store called Sade Music. And they've been a family-owned store for like 60-something years. Wonderful people, still friends with them to this day. That's where I'm doing the clinic next week. And anyways, so I worked there. I was moving pianos. And then I went from pianos to front counter. I helped in the guitar department. They got sheet music, piano, trumpets. Anyways, I kind of befriend a lot of people. I'm kind of shy at first, but when I get to know people. So I was working there and the jazz guys would give me some input. Hey, you should do this. You should take piano lessons. And then the rock guys in the guitar department were like, hey, you should do this. You should do that. So I just had a lot of input during that time. And did you ask me? I think you just asked me about Tishomingo, and I took the ball and ran with it. I'm so sorry. No, I kept going way beyond.
You're doing
Tishomingo.
great. This is awesome. I love it.
Okay.
It makes my job a lot easier when the guest is like, let me tell you about what I've done.
Oh man,
I just sit back and listen. It's great.
There was a little voice in my head that went like,
"No,
hey
good.
Man, he said Tishomingo."
Yeah.
Anyway, so Tishomingo was like the raw, just getting excited about music.
So Tulsa, you work in Tulsa for 15, 16 years.
I lived there, and I started working at a music store, and then went from working at the music store full time to working at the music store part time and gigging part time, playing with a band, a cover band. We played all over Texas and Oklahoma. You get in a van and you go. And then slowly went from part time working at the music store to full-time music, and spent a lot of years grinding it out. And for me, what I do, I'm an instrumentalist, and I had an original band, but we didn't ever push to make a real run for it as far as making like a known band or anything. But anyway, so predominantly what I've done is what they call a sideman, musician for hire, day laborer essentially, And so I would play with 50, 60 different bands in a year. And so I did that for a long time. For the entirety of the time I was in Tulsa. And then somewhere around 6 or 7 years ago, my name got around to some touring guys, the Swan Brothers. I played with them for a few years. They're from Muskogee, and then they won, or they placed high on The Voice, and then they're wonderful musicians, wonderful players, great guys. They hired me. I played with them. That was my first foray into anything touring. And then I played with a female artist named Lauren Elena, and all during that time I was living in Oklahoma and kind of commuting from Nashville to Oklahoma, a long commute. And then most recently I've moved to Nashville, but yeah, 15 years in Tulsa. And that was, I mean, that's really where I learned like how to gig and how to show up on time and to make a career out of it. I learned so many valuable skills that now on the gig that I'm on, it's like I had all the skills I needed.
Yeah. So from that kind of working in that store and jumping in the van and just driving around in a cover band, you always kind of, I assume, had the dream of like, I just want to go play.
Yes.
Like I love playing.
100%.
Right? Because a lot of it could have gone, I mean, obviously you like the education side now because you're doing these clinics and you take the time to do these clinics.
Right.
But it's clearly from a young age, you don't just jump in a van and make no money driving around the country, probably losing money for, just because, right? Like you have a dream and you think one day,
yes,
this could work. I meet the right person. I could be where I am today, which obviously it worked out.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely. And I remember in my brain, I was like, okay, this is definitely an atypical kind of thing. And my family was loving and supportive. No one had done it, so they weren't like, oh, well, you should do this. But they were like, well, we love you, and sounds like you're really making a go for it. They were supportive, is what I'm saying. And in my head, I was like, okay, that's great. And I was like, well, as long as I continue to go upwards and not totally flatline for 10 years or go down as far as money and psyche, and as long as it was feeling good, I was like, I'm going to keep doing it.
Right.
And thankfully, it took a little while to really push through, and it wasn't a thing where like you graduate high school and then you immediately go and start making big boy money. It took a little while, but like you said, the drive was like, well, this is fun and interesting, and there's some, I don't know if it's Jim Carrey or somebody's like, man, you can fail at what you don't want to do. I'm butchering it, but basically it's like, why not at least try to do something that you want to do? So I was like, okay, why not try? And, maybe a little bit of a dream, fun, naivete, and just, all mixed together that kept going. And I'm glad I did, obviously. It's very, very thankful for where I'm at now.
Yeah. Well, and like, to your point, it's, when you have a dream and you're just like, yeah, this is working out, you do not want to surrender to working 9 to 5. Mm-hmm. That is the last thing you would ever choose to do, right? Mm-hmm. Like, unless you get to like, okay, I'm 45 years old, I'm single, I have no life, I should probably get a job, right? It might be 50, whatever it is, or it might be 30.
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean? Like, you're still going, you still have that belief, and there's still hope there. Then that keeps you going, right?
Yeah, it does. And you're right. And I say that, and I'm like, you know what? I'd be playing either way, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm just glad it worked out sooner than later.
Right. So you're kind of commuting, and you're in the right places. You're kind of doing your own thing, and you're part of a cover band, but you're also like a guitarist for hire. Who was that first big break then that gets you kind of in the room and all? Was it the Lauren Elena one or the guys before, the Swan Brothers? And that gets you a tour, and you're like, oh, people like realize who I am.
Well, in a way, yes, in a way. And, I learned a lot of valuable skills with them too. They're both incredible musicians. One of them is a bass player. And so I knew I was like, man, I better be on it because they'll know they're a bass player as well. And so I learned, the ropes of that, but also how to tour well in a bus with other people. Yeah. I see these different, like, I don't know what to call it, like personality archetypes. And it's like, there's a few that work well on a bus. And then there's some that's like, okay, either you're just going to have to be quiet all the time or you just can't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So thankfully I just rolled the dice and went like, oh, okay, I'm easy to be on a bus with, I think. Yeah. So anyway, so I learned that like, oh, okay, this will work for my personality type. Oh, thank God.
My farts don't stink too much and I'm fairly clean. I think I'll be okay.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I hold it in here around the boss and then let it go and or whatever.
That must be tough though. Like you're thrown into an environment where you are, in this metal box that travels around the country, and then you're on stage. I mean, you spend so much time with people. Yes. You have to have that relationship. You have to build those. You have to be open to building. You can't just be, no, this is my way and well, you probably won't last very long.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's plenty of stories out there, people in the industry, they're like, this guy, like, if he'd just kind of bit his tongue, he could have been on tour with the best players. You know what I mean? Like, it goes a lot to say about your personality and who you are, not just as a musician as well.
Well, thanks. That's sweet of you to say. I feel a lot of it was just, it's like we develop our personalities, we make our decisions, but some of that stuff is just kind of, you are who you are, you develop it by like 5 years of age. Anyway, so and so I'm just thankful. I'm glad and lucky that what I wanted to do matched with like maybe who my personality traits ended up being or whatever. So yeah, I'm very, very thankful. Yeah, that was a cool experience, man. That time with the Swan Brothers, man, it really went from just like, playing in bars and stuff and events to like, hey, here's, we were opening for Carrie Underwood.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and you said metal box, and I was, as you're saying that, visualizing the first time on a bus, sleeping in a bunk, and, you live with your coworkers. Exactly. Think about that. That's like, it's like, I hope you like your coworkers because you live with them.
I'm trying to think of who plays guitar for Carrie Underwood?
Ed.
Yeah. Ed's been on the podcast.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
I was trying to look at my phone. I'm thinking of
Ed's the nicest, sweetest, talented, most talented guy. That's too funny. He's been on the podcast.
I had no idea that you opened for them. So clearly you know each other, which is great. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, that's right. And he does a lot of speaking things. That's right, like motivational stuff.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I met Ed and the rest of her band, and they were really kind to us and really cool. And for me, when you're a younger opener, it's like, wow, that's cool. I want to do what they do. Even though you're doing your thing, you're like, okay, they're at the top of the field, and what do they like? What do they do? What do they eat? And they were just really cool and kind to us. And her band leader was really, really nice to me. Yeah, and really cool.
Well, and when you're opening for someone like that, right, at such a at that level, and she's riding the rocket ship.
She's incredible.
She's riding the rocket ship, and now it's funny because you were on that rocket ship with Lugo the last few years, right? It's kind of cool to, like I said, be in that spot where you aspired to be at, but you get to see, you're in these arenas or you're in these places, right, and you're like, even though in your head probably like 50, 60, maybe 80% of these people aren't here to see us. They're still here because they love country music, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, but you're still getting reps in front of, it doesn't matter to you. You're still getting reps in front of, so when you do get the opportunity to open, it's just normal.
Yes.
Which is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's keen insight, because I do have people ask, and people that are like, don't know anything about the industry, a little bit, quite a bit, and then whatever. And then the rest of us trying to learn about it. And, some people ask, they're like, how do you do this? How do you do that? And it's like, well, you work up to it. You really do. It's like start in a bar with 10 people, what's the funny thing people always say? The chicken wire and the beer bottles being thrown at you. I'm kidding. But that
Scene
type
from
of
the Blues
vibe.
Brothers.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, and then you work up to here, and the funny, so sorry, I'll finish one thought and go back. And then you work up to the, casinos, and then the theaters and the whatever, and then the arenas, and you're so right. It's progressive. So when you get there, it's like, okay, this is still new and exciting, and I want to do a good job. But I know what this is like. I've had a catastrophe happen and had to do it in the middle of a performance, and I catch myself over the years still being like attentive and concerned, but just a little more calm if and when something happens, because it's like it's live music. You're on the road. You're tired. You're jet lagged. Whatever. Fill in the blank. It's like you get used to it. I think I forgot my other thought that I was gonna say, but anyway.
Blues Brothers chicken wire, maybe.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to think.
You were talking about catastrophe and emotion. Did the strings break when you were playing?
I've never had a string break, but I have had an instance where. So my first show with the Swan Brothers, it was like, hey, we got your name. Hey, we're doing, I think this was in a week or two. It was not a lot of time before they had to be back out on the road. And they said, we got your name. Are you interested? Etc. Went out to Nashville, did a rehearsal. I think we left immediately after the rehearsal. We packed everything up the staging and the drum riser and stuff. Put it in a trailer, got in that trailer, went to, was it Youngstown, maybe? Okay. Ohio, is that right? Is it in Ohio? But anyway, so that we got in the bus. This is my first time sleeping on a bus. So, they're like, it's like a box, and it's pitch black, which is nice, so there's not light coming in. But it moves, because the driver, and, if the wind's blowing hard, you hit a rumble strip every now and then, whatever. Anyway, so I was getting used to that. And then, man, I got to sleep, and then this loud explosion happened. This in my head, I was like, and so the bus has stopped, and I'm like, what in the world was that? And I think I was on the bottom bunk, so I was close to the tire. It was a tire, yeah. And so I get out, and I'm looking at the bus driver like, what happened? And, funny thing, none of the other guys got out. And I was like, of course the rookie's like, what happened? And everyone else was like, that's fine. Welcome to the road, kid. Yeah. And so I get out, and I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, we blew a bus tire. They had to get a crazy truck with a jack. And anyways, there's all that going on. First touring gig, I'm still like, going over the songs in my head to make sure I don't mess up in front of that many people. We get to the venue, we slide into home. Like, we got there in literally just enough time to put the drums on the drum riser and push it up on the stage. Anyway, something happened with the equipment to where it was difficult to hear. In those venues, there's a lot of, we have wireless in-ears. And so it's like, if there's something going on with the radio frequencies, et cetera, you're going to have trouble. So anyways, something was going on, and I pretty much couldn't hear myself. I almost could not hear myself at all. And so the whole show, I'm listening to the drummer, because you can hear and feel the drums through those in-ears. Yeah. So I'm listening to him, and I'm kind of going on feel and memory. I could hear the vocals. Anyways, it was all the different crazy things that could kind of happen for my first touring show happen. And then I get backstage, and I'm like, what just happened? Is this going to be every day? And, Zach, the singer, was like, well, man, he goes, everything crazy that could have happened. So it's all going to be great from here. And he was so right. Yeah. He was so right. So anyways, it was just a funny road story.
What leads you to get in that phone call that week? Like, does their bass player kind of like, what happens?
So I don't know the circumstances, but they were in the middle of a tour, and their bass player had stepped down or something. I don't know. So there's so many family issues, just saying in general with people. So he left, and I had been playing in the Tulsa area for a long time, and a lot of what I did was like cover band or casino band. I played at churches, and then every now and then I would play with an original artist, and those original artists, are doing their best to get bigger and bigger, and some do, and some push through. I was playing with a guy, he's still a dear friend of mine, Corey Kent is his artist name, and he's awesome, great songwriter. He was like, gosh, I think he was 15 or 16 when I first started playing with him. And then there was a drummer that filled in with him that played with the Swan Brothers, because he was friends, this weird networking web. And so he filled in, and he goes, well, that bass player was a nice guy, and he was talented. Cool. Awesome. Then they were out. He was with the Swan Brothers, and they were on the Brad Paisley tour. He was telling me all about it. I'm sure you could see my eyes were this big when he was talking about it at lunch. And anyways, we played that gig. Time went on. I don't remember how much time went on, maybe 6 months or something. And then he remembered me, and he went, that guy seemed like he would be all right. He recommended me, got in with them. Yeah. Another funny side note on that same subject, similar thing with Luke. I had met Tyler, his current band leader, a long time ago. He's from the Tulsa area, Bartlesville. And so I met him, and I was playing in his band when he was about 16 or 17. I think I was a little bit older, but somewhere around there, like early 20s. And we played for a few years in different bars and clubs, and he wrote songs, and I was like, man, this guy's incredible. He's going to go on to do something. Time goes on. He moved to Nashville. I was still living in Tulsa. Met Luke. Luke blew up. He's been there for 6, 7, 8, 9 years. And then he remembered me and called me for this gig. So testament to the power of networking and, nepotism, not in a negative way, but just like who you know and who believes in you.
Like still being, like, it goes back to you just still putting yourself in that scene, right? And, like I said, it's not for the money. It's not for anything. It's just because one day I might get that phone call. And you've had 2 phone calls from that, which is great, right? Because you consistently put yourself there. Yes. And, then it doesn't just happen overnight, right? And obviously you're very good at what you do. Otherwise you wouldn't even be considered. Like it's awesome to look back at it and see that. One of the things I'm kind of interested in is, what's day of like? Like, what's day of gig like? What's your kind of routine? You after you do this, and I'm extremely grateful for you to give me an hour today, obviously, before you have another show. But what's kind of like on the road like that is the Friday and Saturday the same routine, or is it more sound checks Friday and then we just chill Saturday because everything's set to go?
Great question, and I'm very grateful you had me on. You have a wonderful thing going, so thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, when we do the 2-day thing, the Friday and Saturday, if they're in the same city, the second day is a little bit more chill. However, we typically, the drummer and I do a clinic on the Saturday, so it does add a little bit more. We get up a little earlier for those, get an Uber to the place, etc. And so Saturdays end up being, we typically don't have a sound check. So it does allow for the clinic, and that's nice. But when say we didn't have a clinic, Saturday would be more chill for sure, you know. And then every now and then you'll get an off day on the road. You know, the routing is such that, you know, it doesn't make sense to come all the way across the country to whatever. Or you know, next year we're doing Australia, and so it's like we're going to be there 3 weeks, and so we'll definitely have some days off. And so those are really fun because it's like, you know, when you're working, you're working. I mean, even if it's music, you're still working. But on the off days, it's like, okay, we're here, we have a day off, and if you don't have something to work on peripheral, if you're not writing a book or so, you know, then it's like, well, I'm going to go explore this city. I love that. That's so awesome. And then this year, we did these stadium tours, and we would go up a day. I think we were going up either Thursday night or Friday for a show Saturday. So, you know, Friday you get done with sound check, it's like, well, you got a little time. Or then Saturday day of show, you have a little time, and we walked around Seattle and Denver. And so then that's really fun, you know, and I like history, so I'm always looking at whatever. Or we were in Canada, and Quebec City was awesome. Walked around that city, a lot of history there. And I'm looking forward to next year. We're literally going on a world tour, and it's like Oslo, Norway, and all these places that it's like, even if we're only there for a day, I'm going to be like, okay, I have 1 hour. I'm going to walk around the venue, you know, or whatever. We're going to New Zealand, and I really want to go see I was at Hobbiton. I want to go to that if I can make it over there.
That's, I mean, the fact that like the world tour's next, that's incredible, right? Like,
it really is.
Doing stadium tour in the States is great.
Stuff.
But when you like world tour is like, you know, when you were a little boy and someone gives you a bass, you're like,
that's exactly.
You never think I'm going to be on a world tour, but when you look back, you're like, what? Like how? Wait, Oslo, Norway, New Zealand, Australia, like really?
Places I never. You know,
you're not gonna pay to go to these places, right? On vacation sometimes.
Yeah. There's only so much time in life, you know, and it's like you put it well. I think back at these times and I go, you know what? I remember being in Tishomingo and practicing on my bass. How in the hell would you conceive of, unless maybe your dad was a touring musician and they were like, well, son, this is how it goes. It's like,
your dad's
no conception. Right? Yeah, exactly. It's like no conception of what that would look like beyond your bedroom.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful and it's pure and it's cool. But then as you start like getting a little bit older, you're like, well, I got to make money, and how do I this and how do I that? And then you get here and you're like literally going on a world tour. I mean, it's mind blowing, you know, growing up in Tishomingo, it's like, didn't even know some of these places existed, so to speak, you know, and it's wild. It's a pinch yourself kind of thing.
Right. So then, you know, back to what you said, you know Luke's band leader who is from Tulsa. So you get that phone call. He's like, hey, we're kind of interested. What do you know? Just, do you have time? Like how does that work? Because like, and what's the stage of Luke's career at that point too? Because Luke played here, God, 3 or 4 years ago, I think. Played Criterion.
BOK. Oh, okay.
Maybe smaller. I think it was Luke.
And then maybe a year or two ago, we played BOK. So
he's close.
I joined a year and 3 months ago, and so my first show was Boone, North Carolina, at his old alma mater, his college, and it was like 35, 40, I don't know, a ton of people. That was my first.
What a show!
Packed out, sold out. It was being filmed. It was a lot. And, you know, I'm so glad that I had put the time in before in my career. And we talk about this in our clinics. It's like, there was a gentleman, a friend of mine who lives here in the Oklahoma City area named Ryan, and he goes, hey, can you talk about the importance of doing good on the $50 job so you're preparing for the big job? I was like, that's a great comment and question. So anyways, you know, when we expound on that, it's like, absolutely, you're training for the bigger things, even if, you know, you don't know how big it's going to get. So in that moment and in this moment, I was like, I'm so glad I did because when the pressure's on, it's like, well, okay, if I'm going on past experiences, if I practice the songs these many times, I will feel comfortable with this. And so, sure enough, I that day, the day of the show, I had practiced a lot up until then, but the day of the show, I think I woke up super early, went in one of the little rooms they had for us and locked the door and just literally spent all day. And the show went great, but that was my first show with him. So it was full, vertical tilt, it's been wild. And so, yeah, Tyler called me, a year and 3 months ago ish. And I've known him for 15 years and we had been friends, but he's busy on the road. I'm conducting my career in the way that I can. And, and he's seeing that I'm, doing the road thing, and he's like, oh, okay, this guy, even if it's subconsciously like, oh, he's doing well as well, good for him, pat you on the back, congrats. And I'd see him or hear from him every now and then, be like, hey man, congrats to you. So then when there was a vacancy in the bass spot on that one, him being the band leader, he brought me up to the organization, and luckily over the years I had met 4 or 5 of them from other things, other gigs, or I met this guy for coffee on a whim, or who knows. And so anyways, when he brought me up, the other guys were like, at least some of them were like, hey, I like that, he seemed fine, it sounds good enough. And so you pull all those together, and then he called and said, hey, we're interested. And I was like, wow, I'm so flattered, thank you for even considering me. And this is funny, I'll share, he called me the second time, and as a joke, because we've been, again, friends for a long time, and he's a very funny guy, he was like, I see that was him calling. I'm like, oh, hello. I'm very excited for that second callback to see if they could, we're going to go with me. And he's like, hey man, I just wanted to say thank you so much for considering we're going in another direction. I was like, man, that's all right, buddy. I'm even flattered you considered me. And he goes, yeah, it's like some guy, what the heck is his name? He's from Oklahoma. And he said all these things that let me know it was me. And I was like, dude, why? And he and I both just start cracking up. And I was like, of course he would, anyways, just funny, story. And he's like, yeah, we'd love to have you. You're in, etc. So, I remember where I was at in that moment. It was a really cool moment in my career and life. And, it's been a special year, but that was a very special day, getting that call and being excited. Funny enough, that week I was planning on moving to Nashville. I was loading my van. I was mentally prepared for it. I'd got a place. And so that's when I got the call, was the week that I was getting ready to move there. And I was like, okay, if ever you needed a sign that the stars were aligning. So anyways, I'm just very fortunate, man. All this stuff at the end of the day, I just feel very, very fortunate. It's like, and I talk to family and friends, and we do these clinics and stuff, and it's like, okay, yes, I put the time in. Yes, I showed up on time. Yes, I worked hard, those things. But man, you can do all that and still not have anything happen. So that being said, I'm just really, really grateful. I really am. It's something that I think of maybe, probably at the very least daily, sometimes multiple times a day. Excuse me. And, it's pretty cool, man. I just feel very, very, very lucky and grateful.
Well, it's good to have that moment with a friend too, right? Because he's and the way that he's done it too,
Tyler? Dude.
And now,
really now well. I can laugh about it in the moment. I was like,
I hate you.
Oh, dude, why would you do that? But right. It's like your friends. They're your friends, and they like to,
So when you're playing that first gig at his hometown or his home university, is it noticeable how much louder it is when an artist goes home?
I don't remember, and I just remember being so there we go. They probably were, and I just didn't. I have no doubt they probably were, but I will say this on that note. We played in some venues do stand out as far as noise, whether it's the structure of the building and the people or both. It's probably a mixture of all of them. One of the rowdiest crowds recently, I think, was Quebec City.
Really?
Yeah. They were excited. They were loud. They were they had the plastic beer cups. They were throwing those in the air. And I was like, these people came to party. It was so fun. They were a very, very rowdy crowd. And then during the show, we have in-ear monitors. They go in our ears. So you can hear what's going on outside you, but it's muffled for sure because you want to hear what you're playing. And in the middle of the show, he does an acoustic kind of thing. So we step off, I take my in-ears off, and then there's a piano kind of ballad thing that he does. And so then I get to listen to the crowd, and I'm just like, you can hear how loud they are. And one out of every 3 or 4 shows, someone proposes to their, it's like you're sitting there and they're kind of loud, and then you hear like a giant roar, and it's like, oh, something's happening. You look over, someone's proposing to their girlfriend. And every show there's like a little kid, like, it's my first show. It's like, man, we're really like having these special moments with these audience members, and it's just so cool, man.
Yeah.
It's so cool but yes, some crowds definitely stand out as far as
how
noise.
does that, like, with that proposal with the kid with the sign, like, how does that get to you guys? Is it someone in the arena that's like, hey, like, I mean, because I remember I think it was maybe Garth Brooks, or I've seen someone before, and they were just like, they pick someone out of the crowd, and this guy comes on and he can play, and you're like, hang on a second, like, but some of it's real, some of it's not. But I'm just interested in, like, obviously the proposal's real and the kids in the sign, that's super authentic. But I'm just interested, just from an artist perspective, if there's someone in the team that's like just pointing people out, or a go-to that's like, hey, or an email, hey, if you want to do something, we'll pick the best one.
No.
How does that work?
That's way above my head and pay grade. But I think it's organic. I really do. Like, and so as far as the proposals go, that will just be impromptu in the crowd. I don't know. Like, I haven't been in the band where like someone is brought on stage and done that. It's more just like someone in the crowd during one of the ballads just gets down on one knee.
Sure, yeah.
And so, I mean, everything that I've ever seen has just been impromptu. Even, well, and I don't know this for a fact, but from being a performer, a lot of it is just kind of off the cuff, because you're worried about so many other things that pertain to your job. It's like you don't want to add in 20, 30 other things. So it's almost like by nature it has to be organic, because you can't really plan for some of that stuff. And some of those, I think back to the years playing with different bands, man, there are a lot of talented people out there. And I'm not surprised that every now and then someone says, hey, my son plays guitar, and then you get them up there and they rip. That's totally plausible.
Foo Fighters scene, right? Is it the Foo Fighters scene where you gets this guy,
the Kiss guy?
Yeah, and he's just like,
and he's killing.
What?
Absolutely, I guarantee you that was not, that kind of thing wasn't planned. But yeah, it's the best ones are, I think, natural. And as a performer, that's what you want. You want things to be organic and natural, and that's when they work the best.
Definitely.
Forcing those weird moments is kind of disingenuous and weird, but it's also really special when it's not, because it's like, wow, we're part of a moment. Or, we'll be playing a song that we've played a bunch, and then Luke will just tap into a new area of how he's feeling, or way the song has inspired him. Excuse me, sorry. And so the band will be sitting there and we'll be like, wow, we'll feel it. Yeah. Or, whatever, fill in the blank with whatever he's feeling in that moment. And then it'll definitely inspire and touch us as well. So, and it's like, wow, this is a real moment. We're part of a moment here. So,
yeah, that's super special to have that. But also, like, you're on, like you just said, you've got so much stuff to focus on while you're on stage. I know, you're putting on a show for these thousands of people that are here. I'm sure there are times where you're like, it would be really nice to just kind of stand here and take this in, but I have a job to do right now.
Yes.
It'd be great to read all of the signs that are out there.
Wow, she's beautiful. Oh, I got to play this little lick.
Why is there bra and panties coming through the air? They're not coming at me, they're going to Luke.
Right. Every now and then, someone will, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, are we Motley Crue?
Right. You go back to those stages like, okay, this is still happening.
Yes. Like trying to catch my attention. It's like, oh, that's their first. It's their birth. Oh, I gotta play. 100%.
Do you have obviously last night's show being kind of a home show for you?
Yeah.
Do you have was there anything special moments that you do remember that happened, or do you have a song that you are like, yeah, this is kind of my song, I get to kind of do my thing?
There's a little solo feature that he gives everybody during the show. We do a medley of songs that we all like, and we arrange them and put them together, and then he features each of the band members. Hey, this is such and such from such and such. Play a little 8-bar solo, whatever. And so the guitar player, he's from Tishomingo, Oklahoma, Mississippi.
Okay.
And so funny side story, when I first met him, I was like, hi, I'm Matt. Hi, I'm Dustin. And I was like, where are you from, man? Tishomingo. I was like, no way. And he was like, Mississippi. I was like, oh.
There's two in this world, really?
Yes, yep. And so I, met him, and that was too funny. And I was like, well, I'm from Tishomingo, Oklahoma. So when Luke introduces us, it's a funny, his solo's right before mine. So he's like, Tishomingo, Mississippi, Tishomingo, Oklahoma. And so anyways, last night, that was a really cool, special moment having that. And then we played a song. It's called Even Though I'm Leaving. And, it's I'm not a songwriter, so forgive me, but essentially it's from the vantage point of a son and a dad, and it starts with the son being young, the dad being old. Hey, Dad, I'm scared of monsters. And then the middle part is the son going off to war, and he's like, hey, Dad, I'm leaving now. Before I needed you. Anyways, I'm butchering it. But then the end is the father passing. So it's this arc, And anyway, so my dad passed away. And so I'm like, hometown show, tear-jerking song. And on that one, a lot of times it's a very impactful, emotional song for anyone that listens to it. And I'll look out and I'll have to be careful to not look or lock eyes with someone that's crying, because I'll be like, oh, I know. So that's a moment in the show that even beyond Oklahoma that I have to kind of watch for, because that one will get you.
Yeah.
But especially, poignant because of, being in Oklahoma and having my dad, having passed away. It was just that's a cool moment in the show anyway. So it was extra special. And, I had, 20 different 30 people there. It's like the counselor in high school, my old gym coach, or whatever. Yeah. I had all these people there that were really special to me, and I tried to make the rounds and see everybody. But just knowing that they were there, and then like playing and kind of forgetting where they were seated, and then seeing them going like, oh yeah, they're my friend.
Well, that's the really cool part about the way the stage is set up, right? Because it's a center stage.
WrestleMania.
Oh, so good. When I saw that, I kind of checked last night. I was looking when we were driving into town to my wife's work party. I was like, let's see the stage set up. How much are tickets going for, and what are the tickets at? And I was like, it doesn't matter where you are, because it's right in the center. Yep. Like, so good. And that's so great for you, because you can walk around, you can see everybody.
It's my favorite.
What was the Swan Brothers like that, Lauren and Elena, or are they just more?
The Swan Brothers was when I first joined them. We were on the Carrie Underwood tour, and she did.
Oh, of course.
They call it 360, and she was doing a 360 tour. Yeah. For me on that one, I was a little bit more stationary. So this one's full on, wireless all over the place. And it just depends on the venue. With Lauren, we did a New Year's Eve thing, and it was 360. Yeah. We did Times Square New Year's Eve. It was incredible. Oh, how good is that? It was so cool. There were so many people. Bucket list, interesting, cool moment. It was really, really neat. The Village people went on, I think, directly after us. So I was like, oh, hey. We got to meet Steve Harvey and all this, so awesome. Fun.
Did he drop motivational bars on you as well? Typical Steve Harvey.
Yeah, it's so funny. I think about like these situations where I find myself, and it's like, oh wow, this funny cool person, wow, that funny cool person, and it's my job, and so I keep it cool, but I can be somewhat excited, and if they say hi, you say hi. But when I get around like a musical hero, I might as well be 8 years old. I'm just like, hi, I love you. You're my favorite. Like if it's a bass player that I look up to, forget about it. Yeah. I just devolve, and I just go like, can you sign my shirt? I just turn into a total fan. Like I wouldn't even be able to help it probably.
That's epic though, that you still have those moments, right? Because it brings you back to that kid.
Absolutely.
Because you're not just desensitized to the whole, like, I live in Nashville, I'm around superstars all the time. Exactly. It's no big deal. I'm going on a world tour, whatever.
Yeah, it's like, no, that magic is still there, and it's definitely there from the people that inspired me. Yeah. So my heroes, the bass players that I look up to.
Who are they?
Victor Wooten is a huge inspiration. Someone that I always make the joke, and I'm not trying to be self-deprecating. I'm trying to kind of be like honest. Like, I'm not fit to carry his bass case. He's like top of the mountain. He's an incredible musician, but someone that does inspire me to get better. It's like my Tiger Woods, and I'm wherever over here. Anyway, so he's one of mine, and then guys that I've really been inspired by and tried to, as much as I can, model a career after has kind of been like Will Lee. Nathan East, Sean Hurley. There's like 20 of these guys that I just really look up to. Lee Sklar. Some of these bass people that people are going, I don't know who that is. Right. But yeah,
if you name the bands they played for, everyone's like, oh, okay,
100%. Yeah, like Phil Collins. I mean, between those 3 or 4 guys that I just listed, I mean, everybody they played for is someone that every listener would probably know.
Yeah.
The guys and gals behind the scenes, you know.
Yeah. So to that point, then, do you ever collect like stuff? Because you're on the road, it's probably hard to just like, oh, I'd love to collect this, but you just ship it home. Do you have because you have the opportunity, you're in those scenes. Do you ever like think, oh, this is something I want to take, or get something from every place you go?
I'm the opposite. Oh, really? I'm kind of a minimalist. Okay. Yeah, so I like to do the opposite. Every now and then I will, and if it's conducive or easy. But it's funny. I find myself being motivated with some areas of my life, and then other ways I'm just very late. And that's one thing I'm like, if it's like, well, there's this thing, but I'd have to. I'm like, I better not. So, anyways, I do, and like, you know, like passes. They give you passes for events, and then it ends up being thrown into my bag. So then when I get home, so I do have some of that stuff just because of the ease of just throwing it in a bag, and maybe one day I'll do something with it. But those concert posters they do for Luke, they're always so cool. And they have, I don't know if they have a local artist do it or what, but every one I'm like, that's incredible. And every now and then there'll be extras. And so I've taken a few of those home, and it's just so cool. And you look at it and you go, I framed one, and I mean, it literally reminds you of that moment in time, and you know, it's just kind of there forever. So I'm trying to think. Other than those passes, I can't think of anything that I keep. Just the memories. You know, a lot of people have said, "Oh, you should keep a journal," and they're right. They're so right. I'm just lazy, and I'm not.
Well, you have a million other things to do.
I have a million other things to do, and yeah. So I don't know. Maybe one day I'll look back and be like, I wish I journaled. I probably will.
Yeah. Is there a difference? I mean, this is me not knowing anything about music, and I'm kind of that kid who was like, oh yeah, that'd be cool to play that, or the drums or guitar, and I never did.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between bass? This is going to sound like the dumbest question in the world.
Do it. I love it.
Is there a difference between general playing country bass to general like other music? Like,
yeah. Is it
is it so different that it's like, or is it kind of really pretty generalized?
That's a wonderful question. And
you're just being nice saying that. I appreciate it.
No.
Like, from everyone listening who's not a musician, I'm just asking the dumb questions.
Well, no. And you know, I see what you're saying. I really do think that is a good question, because it's giving me pause, and I'm kind of trying to think of how I would say this. I wish I had more time to answer it, because there is, in a way, and I'm going to stumble my way through it. But yes, I believe so. And it kind of depends on, I don't want to call it what subgenre of country you're playing, but like what style, like if it's an older kind of style of country. I will say this, I've played a lot of different genres. You know, as an instrumentalist, I can go play in a Latin band. I can go play in a rock band. I can really bounce around. And that's what I did in Tulsa a lot. There's a great music scene there. In Oklahoma City, I would come over here to play, and great musicians. And I would play in a wedding band. So I'm playing funk, and I'm playing Norah Jones and Frank Sinatra. And then later in the night, we're playing Bruno Mars, and I'm playing slap bass. It's like I would play a lot of these different styles of bass. And I love that. I really like playing a vast array of styles. So country bass, yes, it's typically, I'm not a musicologist here, but it's like a songwriting, vocal-based kind of thing. It's not like, hey, watch this slap bass solo. It's like, hey, it's what's this country singer saying, and what's the timbre of their voice, and what are they trying to communicate? It's a storytelling genre. And so I'm there to support that. You know, I'm not there to be like, hey, look at me right now. Yeah. It's like, hey, look at this story, or this song, or this vocalist. So it's a little bit more of a minimalist role in a way sometimes. And so if you don't respect that, or you don't know how to do that, you can really overshoot it and not play the genre and give it the respect it needs. You know, or if the line is very, very simple. I mean, it's like a ham sandwich. It's simple, it's good, you love it, but you gotta have the ham. You got to have the 2 pieces of bread. It's like, okay, it's not, beef tartare, whatever. But if that's what you want, you know, it's got to be right. And I love ham sandwich. You know what I'm saying? So it's, anyways, yeah. So you have to learn what that genre needs from you and give it that respect. And I'll say, you know, that's something that comes with time and maturity, you know, unless, you know, you had someone that influenced you or told you how to play that. And for me, what was always the indicator of whatever band I played with was go learn the part. and see what all those other great studio and session musicians did, and do that, and you'll hit a home run. And so when I would go play with a band that had a country bass line, I would put in those extra hours to learn what that person did, and then by that it's floating around and incubating in your mind. And then when you get there to go, hey, write your own in the studio, or come up with a part, or learn these other parts, you've already done a lot of that work, so you know the vibe of that. So if I'm going to play I haven't done it a bunch, but like a fusion gig, like a jazz rock fusion gig, I can go a little bit more wild, or maybe it's a little more extemporaneous where they're like, hey, do whatever you want or go crazy here. And then country, it's like, hey, this person's trying to communicate an idea and a story verbally with lyrics instead of like, musically. It's like, maybe just give them a nice foundation to sit on top of. So yes, as a long answer to your question.
I appreciate it.
But yeah, it's kind of a little bit more of a supportive minimalist role. And if you don't know how to do it, you can, I've been that person, and it doesn't feel very good to not know what you're doing.
Right. Well, yeah, because when you think of like, a bass player and like the greatest kind of bass songs over the years, I think most people would probably think of
I Want You Back.
Is that the big one?
Boo.
And then ones I could think of was like Seven Nation Army was like a massive football, right? Everyone thinks of that in the football. The Chain is now famous because of everyone's now new love for Formula One. The Chain by what's it called? Anyway,
Fleetwood Mac.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then Queen too.
Under Pressure.
Yeah, but also Another One Bites the Dust.
Oh yeah,
right.
There you
so
go.
Like people are like thinking, oh, this is cool, but then those are not
bass riff,
right? They're big bass riff, but also like in a crowd, there's nothing better than just listening to those simple chords, right? When you're in a crowd of thousands of people and it's just that noise.
Yes.
Like, okay, this is gonna pump me up.
Do you know that song "Feel Good Inc." by the Gorillaz?
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of the most. When I teach, that's like the most requested bass line from students.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways,
so many great bands.
Yeah. Absolutely. Those different, the rock and the pop and they're different. And some of those, the bass is a little more prominent and featured. In funk music, it's a thing. I really like playing Latin music because it's not opposite, but it's just so wildly different than the country bass approach. Okay. It's just fun. It gives you variety. So that's a very funny thing. You'll be playing on a syncopated beat instead of maybe like a more traditional kind of downbeat. And both are fun and have their own, merit for sure. But if you don't know how to do one or the other, you can really miss the mark and have those people that know that genre really well look at you like, that ain't it, kid. I played with a reggae singer named Aaron Nigel Smith, and he does reggae music. And my buddy Ben, a very versatile, wonderful Tulsa-based drummer who now lives in Nashville, got me on that gig. And we played all the libraries in Oklahoma City. Oh, wow. It was awesome. He's like, he writes children's music, but it's with a reggae flair, and he's incredible. And I learned his music, and leading up to his gig, I went in and I appreciated and listened to reggae, but I wasn't like steeped and like I wasn't like super confident in that genre as a player. So I went in and started practicing some Bob Marley, Exodus, and a lot of different things from him to kind of get ready for that gig. So then when I started to learn his music, so to that, on that subject, I went in to play these gigs, and the first couple we had a rehearsal, and then the first couple of gigs, and it sounded okay. It sounded solid. He was happy. The singer was happy. You always want to make the person writing the check happy. So he was writing the checks and I was making him happy. But then the third gig, I was like, okay, this feels really good. And he looked over like on one song, he was like, and I knew what he meant. He meant like, dude, now he's like, it was 75, 80%. Now it's 95, whatever. So anyways, just with all these different genres, it's like varying levels of, it's like a painter. They can look at something and go like, okay, that's beautiful and wonderful. And then they look at something that's even more beautiful and wonderful or more skillfully, whatever, fill in the blank. This is a terrible way I'm butchering this. But it's like you can see those differences in the gradient. It's like, oh, that's over here. That's really happening. And so, that happens with your playing and over time. And it's funny, you'll do one genre for a long time and then you won't. And you'll have to go back in and brush the dust off because you haven't done it in so long. So anyways.
That's the great part though about being an instrumentalist, right? Is that you're so much more well-rounded rather than just like, I'm just playing. That's all I do is this one thing. I mean, there are some great people out there who just nailed that one thing.
Yes.
But also the way you do it, I think every day could be different.
Yes.
So much more fun.
Yes,
right?
it is. There have been a few years where it's like I'll play with 30, 40 different bands, and sometimes wildly different genres. You know, there are genres that I've not played, but there's a lot that I have, and that makes it fun. It keeps it exciting. It keeps you pushing towards that next thing. And man, there are still plenty of genres that I just would consider for me like I suck at, and I'm like, man, that would be fun to really get good at that one day. So
yeah.
Luke has downtime, and in that downtime, I'm working on my own transcription, or I'm learning some new skill, and I take lessons sometimes. You know, with Zoom and Skype and FaceTime, you can really reach out to. So there's all these world-class bass players that I've been lucky enough to pay them for some lessons, and that's been fun and challenged me in new ways and stuff.
Well, it's also a great lesson to others listening that you are at the top of your game, or getting close to the top of your game, about to go on a world tour, and you're still taking lessons. Right?
That's fair.
Like, that's to people listening who are like, no, when they like, oh, I've arrived. No, you can always be learning. You can always do something, always perfect what you have.
100%. And this is something that I found out a long time ago. It's like I learned this a long time ago, and so it's already ingrained in me. But then the more musicians I talk to, they affirm that hey, that's right.
Okay.
Is that you got to stay versatile. You got to always be working on something, because when I go into these situations, I am not the boss. It's not my intellectual property. I'm the guy that they're hiring to, hey, you're the independent contractor. We want a wall here. I don't own the house.
Right. So
that's kind of the vibe. So anything you can do to put yourself in a good place overall is really smart, doing clinics or teaching lessons or writing your own music. So that's something that's in my head. It's like, hey man, always be doing, especially now when I'm 36. Hopefully maybe one day when I'm, I'll always play music, but if I don't, if I'm 60 years old and I don't want to, whatever, get in a van and, whatever, then hopefully I will have done enough things to help myself that I can kind of go to St. Thomas and just live there. I don't know.
And teach people over Zoom from the
there
beach.
You go.
Right?
With the backdrop of the palm trees.
Thank you, technology. I had a guy, had a professor in school who did that. He moved. He was like in the Air Force or whatever, and, was like landed planes on aircraft carriers, and in like back in the war. He was old. And this was probably, I don't know, 8 years ago. Mm. And he would do a business economics class from his front porch in Belize. I'm like, dude, I can't tell you how much I hate you right now. And it's like the first week of January, it's miserable outside. All the grass is dead in Oklahoma. I can't go play golf. And you're Skyping.
Got a tan, and he's like, Belize, hey,
telling me about economics.
The drink in his hand. No.
It's like, I hate you so much. It's like, hey guys, look what it's here. So I think after a vote, we turned his camera around so we could see like his office rather than the view he was looking at.
I love that.
But I think finishing up, I got some quick fire questions, but okay. I did get a text from one of my friends he's a big country music fan, Ryan Thibodeau from the Boys of 266M. Who is the most talented country artist or singer that you've ever been around or met? He already has an answer for it. I'll give you his answer, and he says it's Keith Urban. And our group text is blowing up because everyone else thinks it's not Keith Urban. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that. You can obviously say it's Luke because you're employed by him, but you can say it's somebody else if you want. But he's one of my friends is probably the most in love with country music right now. So interested to get your insight on that.
So I have the great fortune of playing for someone that I get to not only see their talent, but how they treat people, everyone, venue staff, band, employees. And so not only for me, do I get to see someone as a great performer and vocalist and mind because they write their own songs, etc. I get to see who they are as a person. And so I can't not. Luke is he's such a talented vocalist. His timbre's great. The barrel, soulful voice, it's incredible. And then also he writes his own tunes, he co-writes and writes his own tunes, so it's his mind and his heart. But then also who the dude is as a person. This sounds like a commercial or something, but it's true, it really is. So yeah, of course I gotta go with my dude, man. Luke's the best. Yeah.
There you go, Ryan, just for you. What is your go-to food on the road? Do you have like what's your rider? Do you have any like special requests in the rider as a bass player? Do you even get one? Like what is the scene with that stuff?
We travel with a catering company and they hook it up. They really do. And let's see. Oh, when we were in Scotland and when we were in London and Toronto, there's some of these cities that really stand out. It's like catering's on point. And so we had some wonderful lamb when we were in Scotland and Ireland. And I won't forget that because that was just great. Obviously, potatoes as well. They were great there. They really were, every form. Yeah, absolutely. Go-to food. Man, we had some great Tex-Mex Mexican food yesterday, and man, I sure wish I knew the company so I could plug them because it was great.
Yeah,
quesadilla. I think quesadilla.
Okay.
As simple as that's my go-to. It's easy. It's go-to. It's the one. If I go somewhere and I'm like, I just need something. I'd say probably quesadilla.
Not any just red colored M&Ms or anything like that.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right?
No.
Nothing specific like that.
Water.
It's horror stories over the years, I'm sure. Do you have a guilty pleasure?
Let me think. Probably death scrolls on Instagram of like funny animal videos or, just hours. It's embarrassing. It's like ridiculous at how much I'm just like, oh, look at that dog. Oh, look at this, guy falling off of whatever, just stupid things that are total time wasters. But, for me, I'm always traveling or playing or, I practice. I have a practice routine I do through the week. So if I'm not doing that, I almost try to give myself a little grace of like, dude, It's okay.
Yeah.
Go on an hour and a half death scroll on Instagram or Facebook videos of like funny, crazy. So I'd say that. What's another one? God, I'm pretty boring outside of music. I really am.
What's your practice routine? You just mentioned your food for that. What's that?
Yeah, so Monday through Friday, this week I've slacked off a little bit, but today being Saturday, I'll make up for the time that Anyway, so I do 1 hour and 45 minutes of that is music related. I do 15 minutes of Spanish. I'm trying to learn how to speak Spanish.
Oh, really?
So I do 15 minutes every day, Monday through Friday.
Any particular reason on the Spanish?
I studied it a little bit in middle school in Tishomingo. Okay. I had a great teacher there, and then a lot of friends that do speak, and I just think it would be a really good language to speak, and also just a fun challenge for myself. Yeah. It's a fun language, and I'd love to go visit, Costa Rica and Mexico and all these places where I could put that. And it's Latin based, so while I would consider, like I said, driven in ways, I'm also lazy. It's like if I learned something that was just so wildly different than that, I'd be like, I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah.
But Spanish, I'm like, you know what? If I work hard, there's at least some overlap and parallels and similar words. Anyway, so I just it's one that makes sense to me and seems within my grasp with all the other things that I do in life. And so 45 minutes, I split it up into 3 different 15-minute segments. 15 minutes of chordal, harmonic ear training, 15 minutes of melody kind of ear training, and then 15 minutes of bass specific. I won't get too nerdy, but like arpeggios, diatonic stuff with a metronome. That's like bare minimum. And then I play a gig or I work on a jazz thing. So, but that's like, to me, like I think of it like brushing my teeth. I have to do this. I'm a professional musician. If I can't do this, shame on me. Yeah. And that's how I motivate myself to do that. And there are days, man, sitting down for 15 focused minutes working on chordal ear training for me can be grueling. It really can. And so, it's a challenge to try and keep that up, but that is an amount of time that pushes me just enough, but that's also within my reach, So that's my hour of I have to do this, Matt, kind of stuff. Yeah. And some days it's, even with, AirPods and phones, it's, I gotta stay on top of it as far as discipline goes. So yeah,
it's so simple as well, right? I think it goes back to whoever's Michael Jordan or Kobe would always start practice with a chest pass. Like you got to have those basics, those foundations, just so you don't forget those fundamentals. Because if you forget those, everything, and I think one of the coaches used to tell his team, like, we'll start with how you should put your socks on. Let's start with that. Like, you put your socks on first and properly, then we'll go with your shoes, and then you can tie your shoelaces, and we'll start from the ground up.
There's something that's tied into psychology with that, like making your bed and all that stuff. It's like, which I don't do, but Yeah, that's my chest pass drill. You know, that's like, hey man, if nothing else, Matt, you're doing this. And what I find is, you know, it's the fundamentals and basics. So then when I go to learn something more difficult, or we take a week off from the road or a couple of weeks, as long as I'm keeping that going, then when I go back to play through Luke's songs before we have a show, I've got my facility and my muscle. I mean, these are, you know, you got to keep your muscles. I mean, you know, you can't not work on a free throw. It's like, you know, conceptually, but those muscles, they atrophy, and they do in your fingers too. So that's my chest pass drill.
Tell me about the tats, finishing up. Tell me you got some tattoos on your hands, and what's the reason? You have any more coming? And
too funny. So I'm on Oklahoma podcast talking about music and bass and life and stuff, and I got a bass cliff on my right hand, and then I have the seal on the flag, the Cherokee shield, and the Oklahoma flag on my left middle finger. So yeah, that's what those are. And got this one quite a while back, and it's funny, I'll go play a gig and they'll be like, oh yeah, that guy, instead of like Matt, or oh, I remember you're a nice guy, it's like, oh, the thing on the hand,
the giant thing on the hand.
Right. I'm sure I'll look at that at 60 and be like, I'm an idiot. Who knows? And then this will just be like a blob. Anyways, I was like, I'm going to play music. It'll be fun.
It'll be fine. Yeah, it's a huge part of your
bass
life.
cliff right there.
Bass cliff around the eyes. Yeah, that's and the teardrop. It's good stuff. Well, mate, this has been an absolute pleasure. Can't thank you enough for taking time out on a day, you know, where you're playing the last show of the tour in Oklahoma. I'm sure it means a huge amount to you, you know, to be out there on that stage, right in the middle of everybody at Paycom Center. I mean, I'm sure the sound is great, and Luke's doing his thing, and the whole band's out there loving life. And I'm sure you guys are ready to be done as well. Nice try and break for Christmas.
Yeah, it'll be good to see family.
Reset for the new world tour next year. But how do people follow you? How do people find you? Maybe if they want to take a lesson from you whenever the time comes and you get into that stuff in the future, like how can they reach out?
Oh, thanks so much. I don't know. You think I should plug an email? Would that be a wrong
Instagram,
thing to do? Yeah.
So I mean, it depends how many emails you want to get. Maybe you might get 10,000. I doubt it, but you might get one. Who knows?
So yeah, my Instagram is Matthew Maxwell, and Matthew is spelled with just one T. So MatheWMaxwell. That's probably the best way. I do a lot of Instagram stuff. Facebook, I think it's under Mat Maxwell, MAT Maxwell. So I think it's like facebook.com/Mat Maxwell. Yeah. So yeah, one of those would be great. Yeah.
Sick. It's gonna be fun.
Thank you so much. Wonderful podcast. Great questions. Thank you.
I appreciate it, and wish you all the best for tonight's show. And I'm sure you've well earned break for Christmas, see family, and back to Tish for a little bit probably.
Thank you, sir.
So for everyone listening, I'll post Matt's Instagram and link below, and we'll catch you next episode. Cheers. Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at OklahomaHOF. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And finally, our third sponsor for today, the Oklahoma 988 Mental Health Lifeline. 988 is the direct 3-digit lifeline that connects you with the trained behavioral health professionals that can get all Oklahomans the help that they need. Learn more by visiting 988oklahoma.com. It's 988oklahoma.com. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.